So guys, today I wanted to show to you guys the Statshark.net, an incredible site you can use to basically test a lot of things that I used to test with different ways, you know? Miss the missile calculator, for example, testing the missile performance, or the flight model calculator, testing the flight model of many aircraft. You can do it all in here, and it's pretty cool. I will leave the link in the description for you to test it out, and I'm gonna show some of the stuff that you can do here, and I will probably use these things on many videos in the future, right? So, for example, in the flight model one, we can test many things here. For example, I'm gonna give you 3 examples over here of what we can test. For example, I'm gonna compare the Rafale to the Eurofighter in certain situations, in speed, for example, and in time to speed, basically the amount of acceleration that it takes to get to certain places. So, for example, between 1,000 kilometers per hour to 1,500 at 5,000 meters. With this, you can compare it to that. You can see basically that the Eurofighter can accelerate a little bit faster. It's by very little, but it does accelerate a little bit faster than the Rafale. You can even test it out without using, for example, the afterburner, for example, here. And the F2000, let me just do this, see if it's saved, and you can calculate with just a normal thrust, for example, and you can see that the Rafale accelerates a lot slower, so it means that it produces more power in general. Of course, you cannot get to the 1,500 kilometers per hour, but we can do, like, for example, here. And you can see that, for example, it's a slight difference between those, but it takes a little bit more time, 3 seconds more for the Rafale to get to these speeds, for example, in this altitude without using the afterburner. So you can test many little things. You can test, for example, the turn. I can test, for example, turn performance over here between a certain speed range. So, for example, here at 100 meters, just a very low altitude. Let me change the speed again, just to make sure they are at the maximum. We are using minimal fuel, which is 30% of the internal fuel. And it will calculate basically here with a lot of things, right? So, yeah, for example, here you can see on the graph that the Rafale turns a slightly better, you know, not even 1 degree of better turn than the Rafale, right? Than the Eurofighter, right? And you can even see the maximum amount in those speeds, in those altitudes. What is the best speed for you to turn, for example? In the Rafale is around 807 kilometers per hour, more or less, and with the Eurofighter 787. So you can see what is the best possible turn speed for your aircraft. You can compare it to the enemies. You can see what you can beat, what you cannot beat when you are in a real battle. And in a way, you can test a lot of things. For example, we can test it out, which is something that I think it's cool to see, the power output difference between the new and old engines of the Su-27, for example. So we can do engine performance over here, and at 100 meters altitude, for example, and you can see the difference in here, that in acceleration and drag. Let me just do this, and in thrust you can see the difference over here, that it produces around 13-14 kilonewtons more, kilogram forces more or less, you know, or 8 kilonewtons, but you know, you can change it up the unit over here as well, but you get the idea, right? Basically making sure that you can know what is the difference in power between the new engines and old engines of the Su-27. You can do, I don't know, maybe let's do an F-16A Block 10, F-16C Block 50, F-16A Block 15, OCU, for example, and you can do maybe the turn performance out of these aircraft. And you can clearly see the difference over here. For example, the Block 10 turning way more than the Block 15 and way more than the Block 50, for example. Like, look at this. It's 40 degrees pretty much of turn rate, while the C is 35. So it's 5 degrees more, 4 point something. And you can see that the speed, it's pretty much the same, you know. So you can compare anything that you want in here. You can take a look on time to speed coefficient change by Mach, engine performance, top speed by altitude. You can basically see what is the maximum speed depending on the altitude that the aircraft is, you know, so to see what is the like max possible speed of these aircraft depending on the altitude that you are, and you can see what aircraft will have the advantage at a certain altitude. For example, at 4,000 meters, they're very much the same, but at 10,000 meters, you can see that they are a little bit different, you know, a little bit different. What is the maximum speed, right? So it's pretty interesting to see this. And of course, we can even do this with missiles as well. So with missiles, it's pretty cool. For example, let's calculate the R-77 to the M120, for example, to see both very different missiles that we have in the game. Let me just do this. The B variant. And we have to, let's see, start speed in my 200, like it's a speed that you are shooting at, the target speed compared to you, the launch altitude, for example, let's do 10,000 meters, the angle of the launch, the initial target distance, so we can do like 80 kilometers, I don't know, and the target altitude, let's do 10,000 meters as well. And then you can choose what you're gonna see here. So for example, I want to see, let me check the speed of the missile throughout this together with the available max G load of these missiles depending on the speed, right? So calculating, and you can see the things here. Oh, I forgot to add this, sorry. Hold up. See? For example, here, I mean, it's kind of complicated. I'm gonna just change. I know, like, this is the G and stuff, but just to not confuse you guys too much, let's just calculate first this thing. But yeah, for example, the speed. The speed is very good to measure basically the energy of the missile, right? So you can see that at the early stages, the R-77 has a lot more energy or speed than the M120. Because it has more thrust, and in the way that it works, it will have more power. But eventually, because of the lower drag and the slower burn of the M120, it will mean, and the higher drag, especially of the R-77, it would mean that the R-77 will have less speed throughout the flight compared to other to the M120, right? And here you can see, for example, other things like, for example, the missile horizontal distance that it flew, basically, right? On the time compared to the distance that it flew, right? So you can see that the M120 flies more than the R-77 because of that, right? And you can clearly see this, for example, in the drag. Ignore this because, of course, there will be some weird things happening because of the range and stuff. But for example, if I put 20 kilometers over here, you will see clearly... there you go, it works. So yeah, for example, here, you can clearly see the launch altitude and everything, that the R-77, for example, has a lot more drag than the M120. Like, look at this. At the initial stages, it's not twice as much, but it's a lot of drag. You can see that it's a lot more drag. So you can see that the R-77 has a lot more drag than the M120 in a general sense, which means, in a general sense, that we will lose more energy. And this is backed by the other things that we talked about. The thrust. You can see how much thrust the R-77 has. He only has a single booster over here of basically 6 seconds, as you see, and then it turns itself off. While the M120 has like a 22 kilogram forces, 22,000. I don't know the measurement, but it doesn't matter. A higher thrust in the very initial phases, 1.7 seconds, and then it goes down to 13.4, as you see, and it burns throughout 7 seconds. So a different type of burner, right? We can compare to other missiles, like, for example, let's compare the R-73 to the AIM-9M, for example, which is a good comparison. And you can compare, for example, let's compare the available max G load that the missile will have. As you see, the R-77 can turn 40 Gs, the AIM-9 can turn 9 Gs. I can do more than, launch altitude, this is like 5,000 meters, 2,000, that's it. And see, you can see the R77, R73 can turn a lot more than the AIM-9 for a little bit more. If I increase the range over here, let me wait. It's the same. Let's see, yeah, after a while the missiles start to drop from the energy and it cannot turn as much as it could before, right? So with that you can compare anything, in any type of thing, the speed of these missiles, the Mach number of them, the distance that they travel, the drag that they have, the R73 having more drag, the time to hit, anything, man, the missile altitude, the thrust of the missile, the mass of the missile. You can compare anything here for both the missile and the flight model of the aircraft as well, you know. And in the sensor, you can even check it out some sensors that we have here, for example, with the RWRs, right? So we can see the SPO, for example, here, and you can see the points and the blind spots basically of an RWR as well if you go there. So for example, here it has a 30 degree to the side, kind of looking right here. So above and below here, it's basically blinded, right? And here we have the sections as well. Small blind spots here and there, but overall coverage of 360 degrees. We can take a look on some of the others. For example, the... let me check the F2000, for example. Which is the... I forgot the name, the DAS, right? It's something like that. Praetorian DAS. Laser warning, no. RWR. And you can compare it to the other ones. For example, here, you can see that it has basically a 90-degree protection because of the MAL system, right? And the SPO has the blind spots. So very, very cool, right, to see all of these. And you can even see a 3D, like, rendered, like, 3D kind of situation over here of what it is. I don't know how do I... Oh, yeah, you can see like the red thing, right? So above and below, it's basically blind, but 360 coverage. If we check it out, for example, the SPO2, I think it is, right? Let's check the SPO2. You can only see like 40 degrees to the rear, 45 degrees to the rear, as you see. So if we check it out, the 3D viewer over here, it's like that behind the aircraft. So you can see a lot of things over here. It's just very, very cool. And yeah, I'm gonna leave it in the description for you to check it out. Mess with it, you know, waste time in this because it makes it so interesting if you like this type of thing, okay? So I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe and thank you guys for watching, and thank you guys from Statshark for doing this. This is amazing. It really is. I never heard of this and I just found out and it's just pretty incredible. So yeah, I'm gonna use this a lot in my videos. It's just amazing. So the links are in the description and I see you guys on the next one. Subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, and bye.